Hello, my name is Adam Clutinger from Indianapolis, Indiana, and today I'm going to be giving a presentation covering the digital divide and specifically how this phenomena affects elderly Americans today. I hope to cover a lot of interesting material, so let's get started. First of all, we are going to meet a wonderful lady, my grandmother-in-law, and I will introduce you to her battle versus her remote control. Then we will move on to discuss exactly what the digital divide is and how it affects members of our society. We'll discuss some current bridges that are under construction. We will also discuss how the divide affects specifically the elderly and how they have some very special challenges where technology is concerned. We'll also discuss some very good methods for bringing technology to a digital immigrant and how you can help folks out become more acclimated to technology. And we'll also discuss some conclusions and some things that will tie things together at the end. This is my grandmother-in-law, Mrs. Vida Fenton. She's an amazing person and has done some pretty cool things in her life. She used to tend bar at the Russian Tea Room in downtown Indianapolis and once even danced with Danny Kaye. She has raised 2 children and helped to raise several grandchildren. She is now working on no less than 4 great-grandchildren. She is a wonderful and strong person, but much like Superman, she does have her own kryptonite. It will bring her calling for help at a moment's notice. It causes her stress, strife, and heartache. It is a source of unspeakable evil in her life that must be contended with on a daily basis. It is her Comcast cable company, Remote Control. It seems that my grandmother has fallen victim to what has been termed the digital divide. So, what exactly is the digital divide? In simple terms, the digital divide is described as the gap between those who have access to technology, typically meaning computers and the internet, and those who do not. It can mean other aspects of technology as well, everything from cell phones and PDAs to sending a simple text message, or in the case of my grandmother, operating her digital television remote control. The term came into widespread use in the 1990s when the internet and the dot-com boom were really beginning to take hold, and increasing amounts of business, commerce, information gathering, and communication began to migrate to computers and the internet. For example, handwritten letters were going by the wayside while people grappled onto email. More and more people were purchasing things online through sites like Amazon and eBay than would actually go to a brick-and-mortar store. As more people gained access and became acclimated to these new technologies, others without the access were left behind, and thus a gap was created between the technology haves and the technology have-nots. The digital divide and its effects are felt around the world and by a widely varying demographic of people. One of the first groups who are affected are the poor. Simply put, technology like computers, internet access, cell phones, PDAs, etc. costs money. It isn't cheap. Even in this day of seemingly endless access to the internet, there are still a great deal of citizens, even in the United States, who simply cannot afford it. The economic aspect is lessened in recent years with the decreasing cost of computers, but it still remains an issue. Citizens of third world and non-industrialized countries are also affected. For example, in the United States, some 585 out of every 1,000 people currently own a computer. If you move to Asia, this ratio is only about 4 people out of every 1,000. In parts of the developing world, access to this technology would greatly enrich educational opportunities afforded to their populations. Senior citizens are also affected, not so much by issues of access or issues of economics, but by usability. As so-called digital immigrants, meaning they didn't grow up with the technology, they are often challenged by the simple act of learning to use the technology that is now available to them. There are many efforts currently underway to help bridge the digital divide and bring technology access to those who would benefit from it. There are many charities, for example, www.bridgethedigitalgap.com, who take donations of old computers, refurbish them, and then give them back to the community to someone who is in need. It's kind of like a goodwill for technology. Also, the local public library, as simple as that seems, still has the best access. Library cards are generally free or very, very inexpensive, and most libraries have free access to computers and the internet that can be used by just about anybody in the community. As far as the elderly goes, there are many community organizations that offer basic computer classes that help folks that have never had access to this technology to learn the basics. Things as simple as clicking a mouse that many of us take very much for granted can really seem like rocket science to someone that was brought up with a slide rule, frankly. So those are some of the things that could help in terms of bridging that gap. And speaking of senior citizens, they are impacted by the digital divide in some very unique ways, and on several different levels. On a social level, it can affect them in terms of their relationship with younger members of their family. Many of their grandchildren and even great-grandchildren have been raised on technology and will want to communicate using that technology, but that can be kind of frustrating when Johnny wants to send an email to Grandma, but he finds out Grandma does not even have a computer. Social networking sites like Facebook and MySpace could be a very good way for the older and younger generations to bond and link up. However, many sites that are simple and intuitive to a 14-year-old can seem like brain surgery to someone who has never even clicked a mouse, much less surfed the web. Along with that, many branches of social services like Medicare, Social Security, etc. are gradually moving over toward a paperless, green, online-only existence. What that means is if you're elderly and you've been used to putting paper in an envelope and sending it with a stamp all these years, the ability to do so may be going away, and you may be forced to attempt to do things online. This can be a very intimidating and daunting assignment for anybody that has never had access to this technology before. So we're going to explore a couple of ways that can be bridged. I think that you can divide digital immigrants as well as senior citizens into three main groups. First, you have the groups that the folks that embrace the technology. They may not know it yet, but they're not afraid to jump right in and give it a try. Secondly, you have those who like technology, much like my grandmother, but they are really intimidated by having to learn it. And finally, you have those who want nothing to do with technology and quote-unquote newfangled devices whatsoever. The simplest group of these three to deal with, frankly, is the third group. If they do not want to learn it, they won't. It's like the old saying, you can lead a horse to the internet, but you can't make him use Google. There has to be a basic desire, I think, on the part of the user to learn, and if that is not there, it will be very frustrating on all parties to try and push the issue. With regard to the first group, those who really embrace the technology and will jump right in and are not afraid to try it, the job is also easy. If somebody wants to learn and they are actively seeking the knowledge, it will become relatively easy to teach them some new tricks. The factor of motivation is taken out of the equation, and pure teaching and learning can take place. The second group is, in my opinion, the trickiest. Going back to my grandmother, it is not a question of motivation, but rather a question of intimidation and, sadly, some ability. No matter how many times I have shown her how to work her remote control, she is still in constant fear of breaking it, despite my repeated attempts to quell her fears. The only thing that I can do, and that I think a lot of us can do, is to be kind and repetitious. There's an old saying in teaching band, what do you do after a kid misses the note for a 1,000th time? Well, you tell them 1,001st time not to miss the note. You simply are repetitive and try your best to be understanding. In conclusion, I'd like to thank everybody for listening to my presentation today. I hope that some of the points that I brought up concerning the digital divide are helpful to you. It certainly was helpful to me to research these topics and to find ways of helping. Personally, I think that one of the best ways any of us can become involved is simply to serve as a positive resource for those in our lives that may be having to struggle a little bit with this technology. And if they are come needing some help, then by all means be very generous with your knowledge and help them to get some things sorted out. Again, my name's Adam Clutinger, and thank you very much for your time today.